Clara Bennett stood at the fresh grave, her worn carpet bag dropping into the Colorado dirt. The wooden cross read, Daniel Hollister, 1845 to 1879. 3 weeks ago, she had sold her dead husband's wedding ring to buy passage west. 2,000 miles she had traveled to marry this man. Now she stood before his grave with $18 in her pocket and nowhere on God's earth to go. Behind her boots crunched on dry grass. She turned to face a stranger with cold gray eyes. "You must be the bride," he said. "I'm Sam. Daniel was my brother." If you want to follow Clara's journey from heartbreak to hope, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The stagecoach had barely stopped moving when Clara Bennett climbed down her legs, stiff from 6 days of rough travel. Copper Creek, Colorado territory spread before her in the July heat, a collection of weathered buildings clinging to the mountainside like stubborn weeds. She smoothed her black traveling dress, the same one she had worn to bury her first husband 2 years ago. It seemed fitting now, though she hadn't known it when she dressed this morning. "Ma'am, you sure this is your stop?" The driver squinted at her. "Ain't much here for a lady traveling alone." "I'm expected," Clara said. "Daniel Hollister sent for me." The driver's face changed. Something passed across his weathered features that Clara couldn't quite read. "Hollister, you say?" "Yes, he owns a ranch outside of town. We've been corresponding for 8 months." The driver removed his hat and held it against his chest. That gesture told Clara everything she needed to know before he opened his mouth. "Ma'am, I reckon nobody told you. Daniel Hollister passed on near 3 weeks ago. Horse threw him out by Miller's Creek, broke his neck." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She reached for the side of the stagecoach to steady herself. "That can't be right. I received his letter just before I left Philadelphia. He wrote about the wildflowers blooming on the hills." "I'm real sorry, ma'am. The whole town came out for his burial. He was a good man." Clara's fingers tightened on the rough wood until splinters bit into her palm. She had sold everything. Her mother's cameo. The quilt her grandmother had stitched by candlelight. Every possession that connected her to a life that no longer existed. "Where is he buried?" The driver pointed toward a small rise behind the church. "Up on that hill. His brother Sam tends the grave." "Brother?" "Yes, ma'am, Sam Hollister. He's got the ranch now, such as it is. You'll find him there most evenings sitting by Daniel's cross." Clara picked up her carpet bag. It held everything she owned in this world: 2 dresses, a Bible, her nursing kit, and $18 in worn bills. "Thank you for telling me." "Ma'am, you got somewhere to go. Someone who can help you." Clara straightened her spine the way her mother had taught her, the way she had learned to stand when the doctor told her William wouldn't survive the night. "I always manage," she said. She walked toward the church hill without looking back. The grave was simple. A wooden cross with Daniel's name and dates carved deep into the pine. Someone had planted wildflowers around the base, purple and yellow blooms nodding in the evening breeze. Clara set down her bag and knelt in the dry grass. She had never met this man, never heard his voice, never touched his hand. But for 8 months, his letters had been the only light in her gray Philadelphia existence. He had written about the mountains, about his dreams of building something lasting, about wanting a partner to share his life. She had believed every word. "I came all this way," she whispered to the cross. "I sold everything. I left everything. For you." The silence that answered her was absolute. Clara didn't know how long she knelt there. The sun moved lower, painting the mountains in shades of gold and rust. Her knees ached against the hard ground, but she couldn't seem to make herself move. The sound of boots on grass broke the spell. "You must be the bride." Clara turned to face the voice. A man stood at the edge of the small cemetery, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat casting shadows across a face that looked carved from the same stone as the mountains. He was older than Daniel had described himself, with threads of gray at his temples and a scar running along his jawline. "I'm Sam. Daniel was my brother." Clara rose slowly, brushing dirt from her skirts. "You knew I was coming." "Found the letters after he died. He kept them in a tin box under his bed. I sent a telegram, but I reckon it missed you on the road." "It must have." They stood facing each other across Daniel's grave. Sam Hollister's gray eyes moved over her with an assessing quality that made Clara lift her chin. "You came a long way for nothing," he said. "I came for a new life. I didn't know it would end in a graveyard." "Most things do eventually." Sam removed his hat, running a hand through dark hair. "I'm sorry about Daniel. He was a good man, better than me." "What happens now?" "To you." Sam shook his head. "That ain't my concern, ma'am. I got enough troubles of my own without taking on my dead brother's mail-order bride." Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I wasn't asking you to take me on. I was asking what arrangements can be made." "The stagecoach runs through twice a week. Next one comes Thursday. I'll pay your passage back to wherever you came from." "Philadelphia." "Fine. Philadelphia." Sam settled his hat back on his head. "There's a boarding house in town. Mrs. Mueller runs it. She'll give you a room until Thursday. I'll cover that too. It's the least I can do for Daniel's sake." Clara's fingers curled into fists at her sides. "And if I don't want to go back to Philadelphia?" Sam's expression didn't change. "Then that's your business, ma'am, but it ain't mine." He turned to leave, and something in Clara snapped. She had spent 2 years being quiet, being proper, being the grieving widow who never complained. She had endured her in-laws throwing her out of her own home, had watched strangers pick through her possessions at auction, had sat alone in a boarding house room while the world moved on without her. She was done being quiet. "I have $18, she said, her voice cutting through the evening air. "I have no family, no home, no prospects. The boarding house where I lived has rented my room. The hospital where I worked has hired someone else. I answered your brother's advertisement because there was nothing left for me in Philadelphia except slow starvation or a marriage to a widower 3 times my age who needed a nursemaid, not a wife." Sam stopped walking. He didn't turn around. "I am sorry for your troubles, ma'am, but I can't help you." "I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for a chance." Now he turned. His gray eyes had hardened. "A chance to do what?" "To work. To earn my keep. I'm a trained nurse. I worked beside my husband for 6 years before he died. I can cook, clean, sew, and tend to sick animals as well as sick people. I'm not asking for charity. Mr. Hollister, I'm asking for an opportunity to prove my worth. This ain't Philadelphia. This is rough country, summer heat that'll drop a man in his tracks. Winters that freeze the ground solid for 5 months. The nearest real doctor is 3 days' ride. The nearest city is further than that. I know what rough country is. I nursed soldiers during the war. I've seen men die in ways that would make your worst nightmares look peaceful." Something flickered in Sam's expression. A recognition, maybe, or a memory. "You worked in the war. Field hospitals. From 63 until the end. Then I married a doctor who'd lost his taste for surgery after what he'd seen. We built a practice in Philadelphia. He died 2 years ago. Typhoid." Sam was quiet for a long moment. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the whisper of wind through the grass. "I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for yours. But grief doesn't pay bills, Mr. Hollister, and neither does pride." Sam's jaw tightened. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Clara held his gaze without flinching. "The ranch is struggling," he said finally. "Daniel and I were supposed to work it together. Without him, I can barely keep up with the cattle, let alone the house and everything else. I ain't got money to pay wages." "I'm not asking for wages. I'm asking for room and board in exchange for work. A fair arrangement between 2 people who both need something the other can provide." People will talk. A single woman living on a bachelor's ranch. Your reputation. My reputation died when my in-laws threw me out of my home and told everyone I'd driven my husband to an early grave with my cold heart. Clara's voice didn't waver. I stopped caring what people think the day I realized their good opinion couldn't buy bread. Sam rubbed a hand over his face. He looked tired, Clara realized. Bone deep, exhausted, in the way of a man carrying too much weight for too long. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. But it's a mistake I'm willing to make. Are you? The question hung between them. Sam looked at his brother's grave, then back at Clara. 3 months, he said. That's what I'll give you. 3 months to prove you can handle this life. If you can't, or if either of us decides this ain't working, you go. No arguments, no negotiations. Agreed. Clara extended her hand. Agreed. Sam looked at her hand for a moment, then clasped it in his own. His grip was calloused and warm, and Clara felt something shift in her chest. Not attraction exactly, something more complicated. Recognition, maybe. The awareness of meeting someone whose wounds matched her own. The wagon's by the livery, Sam said, releasing her hand. We'll get your things and head out to the ranch before dark. Clara picked up her carpet bag. This is all I have. Sam's expression softened, just for a moment. Then, let's go. The ranch house was smaller than Clara had expected. A simple structure of weathered wood with a stone chimney and a covered porch that faced the mountains. A barn stood nearby, and beyond that, she could see cattle grazing in the fading light. It ain't much, Sam said as he helped her down from the wagon. Daniel had plans to build it bigger. Never got the chance. It's solid. That's what matters. Sam carried her bag inside. The interior was clean but sparse. A main room with a fireplace, a small kitchen area, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs. 2 doors led to what Clara assumed were bedrooms. You'll take Daniel's room, Sam said, setting her bag by one of the doors. I already moved his things out. There's fresh linens on the bed. The kitchen's stocked more or less. Privy's out back. Clara nodded, taking it all in. The house smelled of wood smoke and coffee, and something else, something indefinable that spoke of men living alone. I'll start on supper, she said, unless you've already eaten. Haven't had a proper meal in weeks. Been living on hardtack and coffee. Then sit down, Mr. Hollister. Let me earn my keep. Clara found flour lard salt pork and dried beans in the kitchen. Not much to work with, but enough. She had cooked over campfires during the war with less. Within an hour she had biscuits baking in the small oven and a pot of beans simmering over the fire. Sam sat at the table watching her move through the kitchen with an expression she couldn't quite read. You know your way around a stove. I know my way around a lot of things. Clara wiped her hands on a cloth. Tell me about the ranch. What needs doing? Everything. Sam leaned back in his chair. Daniel handled the business side, books, accounts, dealing with buyers. I handle the cattle and horses. Problem is, can't do both. Got a herd of 60 head that needs moving to summer pasture, a barn roof that's been leaking since spring, and a garden plot that's gone to weeds. Any hands? Used to have 2. They left after Daniel died. Couldn't pay them, and they found work at Jebediah Walters' spread. Who's Walters? Sam's jaw tightened. Biggest ranch owner in the territory. He's been after this land for years. Made Daniel 3 offers before he died, and he's made me 2 since. I keep saying no. Why does he want it? Water rights. Miller's Creek runs through the north end of our property. Walter's cattle have to water at the public trough in town, which costs him time and money. If he had this land, he'd control the only reliable water source for 20 miles. Clara set 2 plates on the table. So he's waiting for you to fail. Reckon so. Every rancher who gives up around here, Walters buys out. Pretty soon, he'll own the whole valley. And you're determined not to let that happen. This was our father's land. He built this house with his own hands before he went off to war and never came back. Daniel and I swore we'd keep it in the family. Now Daniel's gone and I'm all that's left." Clara sat down across from him. "Then we'd better get to work." Sam looked at her across the table. The lamplight softened his harsh features, made him look younger than his years. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care about saving a stranger's ranch?" Clara considered the question. "Because I know what it feels like to lose everything. To watch something you love slip through your fingers while people stand around waiting for you to fail. I didn't have anyone to help me when my life fell apart. Maybe I can be that person for someone else." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his fork. "These biscuits smell better than anything I've eaten in months." "Wait until you taste them." They ate in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who had run out of words for their grief and found unexpected peace in simply existing alongside another person who understood. After supper, Clara washed the dishes while Sam sat by the fire, mending a broken bridle by lamplight. The domestic scene felt strange, Clara thought, as if they were playing roles in a life that didn't belong to either of them. "I should tell you something," Sam said without looking up from his work. "About Daniel. About the letters." Clara's hands stilled in the wash water. "What about them?" "He wasn't—" Sam paused, seeming to search for words. "He wasn't always honest in those letters. He painted things prettier than they are, made the ranch sound more prosperous, made himself sound younger. I don't know what picture he created in your mind, but this is the truth of it. A struggling ranch, a rundown house, and me. That's all there is." Did he lie about who he was? His character? No, Daniel was a good man, gentle, kind. He just wanted you to come. Wanted it badly enough that he stretched the truth. Clara dried her hands on the dishcloth. "I suspected as much. His letters were beautiful, but they read like dreams, not reality. I chose to believe them anyway." "Why?" "Because dreams were all I had left. And sometimes a beautiful lie is easier to hold on to than an ugly truth." Sam looked up at her then, and Clara saw something shift in his gray eyes. Not warmth exactly, but perhaps the first thaw of ice that had been frozen for too long. "You're an unusual woman, Mrs. Bennett." "Clara, if we're going to be living under the same roof, you might as well use my name." "Clara." The word seemed to settle in the air between them. "I'm Sam, just Sam." "I know. You told me, twice now." The corner of Sam's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Get some sleep. Morning comes early around here, and there's work to be done." Clara nodded and turned toward her room. At the door she paused. "Sam, yeah. Thank you for giving me a chance." Sam returned his attention to the bridle in his hands. "Don't thank me yet. 3 months is a long time. You might regret this arrangement before it's done." "I might, but I'd rather regret trying than regret giving up." She closed the door behind her before he could respond. The bedroom was small but clean. A narrow bed with a handmade quilt, a simple dresser, a window that looked out toward the mountains. Clara sat on the edge of the mattress and finally allowed herself to feel the weight of the day. She had come west to marry a man she'd never met. She had found his grave instead. And now she was living in his house with his brother, a stranger with haunted eyes and hands that trembled slightly when he thought no one was looking. Clara recognized those tremors. She had seen them in William and the soldiers she had nursed in herself when the nightmares came. Trauma lived in the body long after the mind tried to forget. She unpacked her bag slowly. The Bible her mother had given her. Her nursing kit with its bandages and scissors and small bottle of laudanum for emergencies. 2 dresses both worn thin from washing. And at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, the last photograph of William taken the year before he died. She held the photograph in the lamplight. William's face smiled back at her, frozen in a moment, before illness had stolen the light from his eyes. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm trying to start again. I hope you understand." The photograph gave no answer. Clara placed it in the dresser drawer and extinguished the lamp. Outside, she could hear Sam moving around the main room, banking the fire for the night. The sounds were unfamiliar but somehow comforting. Evidence that she was not entirely alone. Clara lay in the darkness and listened to the Colorado wind whisper against the windows. Tomorrow she would begin the work of building a new life. Tonight she would allow herself one last moment of grief for all the lives she had imagined and lost. The tears came quietly, as they always did. And when they finally stopped, Clara slept. Morning announced itself with the crow of a rooster and the clatter of pots in the kitchen. Clara dressed quickly in her work dress and found Sam already at the stove, frowning at a pan of burned eggs. "I tried," he said without turning around. "Cooking ain't my strong suit." Clara took the pan from his hands. "Go tend to the animals. Breakfast will be ready when you get back." Sam looked at her with something like relief. "Yes, ma'am." He grabbed his hat and headed out, and Clara surveyed the damage. The eggs were beyond saving, but there was more in the larder. She set to work cracking fresh eggs and slicing bacon, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Through the window, she watched Sam cross the yard toward the barn. He moved with a slight limp she hadn't noticed yesterday, favoring his left leg. War wound, probably. Like the tremors in his hands and the shadows in his eyes. They were both carrying ghosts, she realized. Different ghosts, perhaps, but the weight felt the same. By the time Sam returned, Clara had breakfast on the table, scrambled eggs, crisp bacon, fresh biscuits with honey she'd found in the back of the cupboard. Sam sat down and stared at the meal like he'd never seen food before. "Eat," Clara said. "We've got work to do." "Yes, ma'am." They ate quickly, and then Sam pushed back from the table. "You sure you want to do this? Ranch work ain't easy." Clara stood and rolled up her sleeves. "Show me what needs doing, Sam, and stop asking if I'm sure. I've answered that question enough times." Sam's mouth twitched again, almost a smile. "All right then, let's get to work." They stepped out into the Colorado morning, the summer sun already warm on Clara's face. Ahead of her stretched 90 days of proving herself, of building something from nothing, of learning to live alongside a man she didn't know. It was terrifying. It was exactly what she needed. Clara took a deep breath and followed Sam toward the barn, toward whatever came next. The first week tested Clara in ways she hadn't expected. Her hands blistered from hauling water. Her back ached from bending over the neglected garden. Her arms burned from scrubbing years of grime from the ranch house floor. But she didn't complain, not once. Sam watched her from the corner of his eye, waiting for her to break. She could feel his skepticism like a weight on her shoulders every time she picked up a tool or lifted a bucket. On the 7th morning, he found her already awake, coffee brewing on the stove and biscuits rising in the oven. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." Clara poured him a cup. "The garden needs weeding before the sun gets too hot. I want to get it done before noon." Sam took the coffee and wrapped his hands around the cup. "You've been working yourself ragged, Clara. Ain't nobody expecting miracles." "I am." He studied her face. The dark circles under her eyes, the new calluses on her palms, the stubborn set of her jaw. "Why? Because I have 3 months to prove I belong here. I don't intend to waste a single day." Sam set down his cup. "I need to ride into town today. Pick up supplies, check the mail. You want to come?" Clara's hands stilled on the stove. "Will people talk? People always talk. Question is whether you care." Clara thought about Philadelphia, about the whispers that had followed her like shadows after William died. The pitying glances. The cruel speculation. "I stopped caring about talk a long time ago," she said. "What time do we leave?" They rode into Copper Creek mid-morning, Sam handling the wagon while Clara sat beside him. The town was busier than it had been on her arrival. Miners and ranchers filling the dusty streets. Heads turned as they passed. Clara felt the weight of curious stares, heard the murmur of voices dropping to whispers. "There she is," someone said. The mail-order bride who showed up to find her groom already buried. "Living out at the Hollister place now," Just her and Sam. Ain't proper if you ask me." Clara kept her spine straight and her eyes forward. Let them talk. Their words couldn't hurt her any more than life already had. Sam pulled the wagon up in front of the mercantile and helped Clara down. His hand was warm and steady on hers, and he didn't let go immediately. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "They got nothing better to do than flap their jaws." "I know. I've met their kind before." The mercantile was run by Maggie O'Brien, a stout Irish woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. She looked up as they entered, and her face broke into a genuine smile. "Sam Hollister, as I live and breathe. Haven't seen you in town since Daniel's funeral." Her gaze shifted to Clara. "And you must be the young woman everyone's been talking about." "Clara Bennett." Clara extended her hand. "I hope the talk hasn't been too unkind." Maggie clasped her hand firmly. "Honey, in this town, if people aren't talking about you, you aren't interesting. I'm Maggie. I run this place and know everybody's business whether they like it or not. I appreciate your honesty. It's all I've got to offer besides overpriced flour and canned goods." Maggie leaned on the counter. "So what's your story, Clara Bennett?" "The gossips say you came to marry Daniel and ended up shacking up with Sam instead." "Maggie." Sam's voice carried a warning. "Oh, hush. I'm asking what the whole town wants to know." Maggie's eyes twinkled. "Might as well get the truth out before the lies take root." Clara appreciated the woman's directness. "I answered Daniel's advertisement for a wife. He died before I arrived. Sam offered me work at the ranch in exchange for room and board. It's a business arrangement, nothing more." "Nothing more?" Maggie raised an eyebrow. "Nothing more? Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping for something more romantic." Sam cleared his throat. "We need supplies, Maggie. Flour, salt, coffee, bacon. Whatever you've got that's fresh." "All business with you, Sam Hollister. All business." Maggie began gathering items from the shelves. "You know, Clara, this town could use a woman with some sense. Most of the ladies around here are more concerned with who's courting who than anything practical." "I'm afraid I'm not much for social calls." "Good. Neither am I. You stop by sometime when Sam isn't hovering. We'll have tea and talk about something more interesting than the weather." Clara found herself smiling. "I'd like that." They were loading the supplies into the wagon when a voice cut through the morning air. "Sam Hollister." Clara turned to see a man approaching. He was tall and well-dressed, with a silver watch chain glinting against his vest and a hat that looked like it had never seen a day's honest work. His smile was broad, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Walters." Sam's voice went flat. "What do you want?" "Just being neighborly." Jebediah Walters stopped a few feet away, his gaze sliding to Clara. "And who might this lovely lady be?" "None of your concern." "Now, Sam, there's no need for hostility. I'm simply paying my respects to your guest." Walters tipped his hat to Clara. "Jebediah Walters, ma'am. I own the Silver Creek Ranch, largest operation in the territory." "Clara Bennett." "Ah, the mail-order bride. I heard about your unfortunate situation. My condolences on your loss." "Thank you." Walters clasped his hands behind his back. "You know, ma'am, if Sam here isn't treating you properly, I've got plenty of room at my place. A woman of your obvious refinement shouldn't be stuck on a failing ranch doing work meant for hired hands." Clara felt Sam stiffen beside her. "Mr. Walters, I appreciate your concern, but I'm exactly where I choose to be. The Hollister Ranch suits me fine." "Does it?" Walter's smile sharpened. "Give it a few months. When winter comes and Sam can't pay his bills, you might feel differently. My offer stands, ma'am, for you and for the land." He turned to Sam. "Think about it, Hollister. You're fighting a losing battle. One man can't run that ranch alone, and we both know it." "I ain't alone," Sam said, "and I ain't selling." "Pride's a dangerous thing, Sam. It can make a man hold on long past the point of sense." Walters tipped his hat again. "Good day to you both." He walked away, and Clara watched him go with narrowed eyes. He's not going to stop, is he? No. Sam's jaw was tight. Jeb Walters always gets what he wants. Always. Doesn't matter who he has to crush to get it. Then we'd better make sure he doesn't get your ranch. Sam looked at her, something shifting in his expression. Clara met his gaze steadily. I made a deal, Sam. 3 months to prove myself. I don't intend to let some silver-tongued snake drive me off before my time is up. For the first time since she'd met him, Sam almost smiled. You're something else, Clara Bennett. I'll take that as a compliment. They were climbing back into the wagon when Clara heard it. A child's cry, sharp and pained, coming from the alley between the mercantile and the blacksmith shop. She was moving before she made a conscious decision, her feet carrying her toward the sound. Clara, wait. She rounded the corner and stopped short. A boy, maybe 10 years old, sat on the ground clutching his arm. Blood seeped through his fingers, dripping onto the dirt. His face was pale with shock, his eyes too big for his thin face. Clara dropped to her knees beside him. Let me see. I fell, the boy stammered. There was glass. I didn't see it. Clara gently pulled his hand away. The cut was deep, running from his wrist nearly to his elbow. It would need stitches, and soon. Sam, she called over her shoulder. Get my bag from the wagon, the leather one. Sam appeared at the mouth of the alley, took one look at the situation, and ran. What's your name? Clara asked the boy, keeping her voice calm. Tommy. Tommy Reeves. All right, Tommy. I need you to stay very still for me. Can you do that? He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. Good. You're being very brave. Sam returned with her nursing kit. Clara opened it quickly, pulling out bandages, her suture kit, the small bottle of carbolic acid she used for disinfection. This is going to sting, she warned Tommy, but it will keep the wound from going bad. She cleaned the cut efficiently, her hands steady despite the blood. Tommy whimpered, but didn't pull away. Where are your parents? Clara asked as she threaded her needle. Ain't got none. Ma died when I was little. Pa went to the mines and never came back. Clara's heart clenched. Who looks after you? Nobody. I mean, folks give me food sometimes. I do odd jobs, sleep where I can. Clara exchanged a glance with Sam. His expression had gone hard, but she saw something else beneath the anger. Something that looked like recognition. Hold his arm steady, she told Sam. This is the hard part. Sam knelt beside them and gripped Tommy's arm above the wound. Clara began to stitch her movements, quick and precise. Tommy cried out once, but bit down hard on his lip and didn't make another sound. Almost done, Clara murmured. You're doing so well, Tommy. So brave. By the time she tied off the last stitch, a small crowd had gathered at the mouth of the alley. Maggie O'Brien pushed through them, her face worried. Lord have mercy. Tommy, what happened? He cut himself on broken glass, Clara said, wrapping the wound in clean bandages. He'll need to keep this dry and change the dressing daily. Maggie looked at Clara with new respect. You did that? The stitching? I'm a trained nurse. I worked in field hospitals during the war. Field hospitals? Maggie's eyes widened. No wonder your hands are so steady. Clara helped Tommy to his feet. He swayed slightly, and Sam caught his shoulder. Easy, boy. You lost a fair bit of blood. I'm fine. Tommy's voice was weak but stubborn. Thank you, ma'am. I'll pay you back somehow, I promise. You don't owe me anything, Tommy, but I do want to check that wound tomorrow. Make sure it's healing properly. How? Tommy's face fell. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. Clara looked at Sam. Something passed between them unspoken. Sam cleared his throat. You know how to work. Hard work, I mean. Ranch work. Tommy straightened, hope flickering in his eyes. Yes, sir. I can do anything. Muck stalls, haul water, tend animals. I ain't afraid of work. The ranch could use an extra pair of hands. Room and board in exchange for labor. Same deal as Clara here. Tommy's mouth fell open. You mean it? You'd take me on? I don't say things I don't mean, boy. Tommy looked at Clara, then back at Sam as if expecting them to laugh and reveal the joke. I won't let you down, sir. I swear it. See that you don't. Maggie O'Brien wiped her eyes with the corner of her apron. Sam Hollister, you just became the second most talked about person in town. Who's the first? Her. Maggie pointed at Clara. A mail-order bride who does surgery in alleys. Honey, you're going to be a legend. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. I just did what needed doing. That's exactly what makes it remarkable. Maggie patted her arm. You stop by for that tea soon, you hear I want to know everything about you. The ride back to the ranch was quiet but comfortable. Tommy sat in the wagon bed, too tired to talk, while Sam drove, and Clara sat beside him. Thank you, she said quietly, for taking Tommy in. Seemed like the thing to do. You didn't have to. Another mouth to feed, another person to worry about. Sam stared at the road ahead. I know what it's like. Being alone, having nobody give a damn whether you live or die. Happened to me and Daniel after our folks passed. If someone had offered us a hand, might have saved us a lot of hard years. Clara studied his profile. The hard line of his jaw, the shadows in his eyes. How old were you when you lost them? 12. Daniel was 8. Sam's voice was flat. Pa died at Gettysburg. Ma lasted another year before the grief took her. After that, we bounced from relative to relative until I was old enough to work. I'm sorry, Sam. Long time ago, don't need sorry. Everyone needs sorry sometimes, even if they don't want to admit it. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You were good today, with Tommy, with the whole thing. Didn't panic, didn't hesitate. Just did what needed doing. That's what nurses do. It's more than that. Sam glanced at her. Most people freeze when there's blood. You didn't even blink. I've seen worse. Clara's voice was quiet. Much worse. The war. Yes. Sam nodded slowly. Me too. They didn't say anything else, but something had changed between them. A wall had come down just slightly, enough to let a sliver of light through. That night, Clara made dinner for 3. Tommy ate like he hadn't seen food in days, probably because he hadn't. Sam watched the boy with an expression Clara couldn't quite read. You'll sleep in the barn for now, Sam told Tommy. There's a cot in the tack room. It ain't fancy, but it's dry. It's perfect, sir. Thank you. Call me Sam. Sir makes me feel old. Yes, Sam. After Tommy went to bed, Clara and Sam sat by the fire. The silence was different now. Less tense, more companionable. You did a good thing today, Clara said. With Tommy. You did the good thing. I just offered him a place to sleep. That's more than most would do. Sam poked at the fire. Jeb Walters will use this against us, you know. Say we're collecting strays running some kind of charity instead of a ranch. Let him. We'll prove him wrong. How? Clara leaned forward. By making this ranch profitable. By building something he can't tear down. You said Daniel handled the business side. The books, the accounts. Let me take that over. Sam looked at her sharply. You know numbers. My husband was a doctor. I managed his practice for 6 years. Billing accounts collections. I know how to make money stretch and how to bring more in. The books are a mess. Haven't touched them since Daniel died. Then let me sort them out. Let me see what we're working with. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and went to a cabinet in the corner. He pulled out a leather ledger, worn and dusty, and set it on the table. Daniel's records. Everything's in there, or supposed to be. Clara opened the ledger. The pages were covered in cramped handwriting numbers and notations that would take hours to decipher. I'll need time to go through this properly. Take whatever you need. Clara looked up at him. You trust me with this? You stitched up a stranger's arm in an alley without being asked. You work harder than any person I've ever met. You took a chance on me when you had every reason to walk away." Sam met her eyes. "Yeah, Clara, I trust you." Something warm spread through Clara's chest. She didn't have words for it, so she simply nodded. "I'll have a report for you by the end of the week." "I don't doubt it." Sam headed for his room, then paused at the door. "Clara." "Yes." "I'm glad you didn't get on that stagecoach back to Philadelphia." Before she could respond, he closed the door behind him. Clara sat alone by the fire, the ledger open in her lap, and allowed herself to smile. The second week brought new challenges. Tommy proved to be a hard worker, eager to please and quick to learn. He followed Sam around the ranch like a shadow, soaking up everything the older man taught him. Clara threw herself into the books. What she found was worse than she expected. "Sam." She spread the papers across the kitchen table. "We need to talk." He came in from the barn wiping his hands on a rag. "That bad?" "The ranch is $60 in debt. You've got loans from the bank that are 3 months overdue. The cattle you sold last fall should have covered it, but Daniel's records show the money went somewhere else." Sam's face went pale. "Where?" "I don't know. There are entries here I can't make sense of. Large sums paid out to someone with the initials JW. Sam went very still. "Jebediah Walters." "You think Daniel was paying Walters? For what?" "I don't know." Sam's voice was tight. "But I intend to find out." He grabbed his hat and headed for the door. "Sam, wait. You can't just—" "Stay here. Look after Tommy." "Sam?" But he was already gone, the sound of hoofbeats fading into the distance. Clara stood in the doorway, her heart pounding. Whatever secret Daniel had been keeping, it was about to come out, and she had a terrible feeling it would change everything. Tommy appeared at her elbow. "Is Sam okay?" "I don't know, Tommy." Clara watched the dust settle on the road. "I really don't know." The hours crawled by. Clara tried to work, tried to focus on the garden, on the mending, on anything that would keep her hands busy and her mind quiet. It didn't work. Tommy stayed close, sensing her anxiety. He asked questions about nursing, about Philadelphia, about anything that might distract them both. "Were you scared?" he asked. "In the war hospitals. Every day." "Then why did you do it?" Clara thought about it. "Because the fear was smaller than the need. Those men were dying and I could help. What right did I have to let my fear stop me?" Tommy considered this. "Is that why you stayed here, because the need was bigger than the fear?" "Something like that." The sun was setting when Sam finally returned. Clara heard the horse and ran to the porch, Tommy beside her. Sam dismounted slowly. His face was ashen. "What happened?" Clara demanded. "What did you find out?" Sam walked past her into the house. He sat down heavily at the table and put his head in his hands. Daniel was being blackmailed. Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Blackmailed? For what? Walters found out something. Something about our past. Something Daniel thought would destroy us if it came out. What could possibly... Our father. Sam's voice cracked. He wasn't a war hero, Clara. He was a deserter. Ran from Gettysburg and died hiding in the mountains like a coward. If people knew, we'd lose everything. Our reputation, our standing, our right to own this land. Walters has proof. Letters, documents. Clara sank into the chair across from him. So Daniel was paying him to keep quiet. For 3 years, every cent we made went to that snake. And when Daniel couldn't pay anymore... Sam looked up, his eyes red. Walters told him he'd take the ranch instead, accept it as payment in full. Daniel refused, kept saying he'd find another way. And then Daniel died. Yeah. Sam's voice was hollow. Then he died. Clara reached across the table and took his hand. He flinched, but didn't pull away. Sam, listen to me. Whatever your father did, it doesn't define you. You are not your father's choices. Tell that to the people of Copper Creek. Tell that to the bank. Tell that to everyone who's ever shaken my hand, because they thought I came from good stock. Your father made a terrible decision. But you and Daniel. You built this ranch. You worked this land. You earned everything you have through your own sweat and sacrifice. That matters more than a dead man's shame. Sam shook his head. You don't understand. Out here, reputation is everything. If Walters reveals the truth, we're finished. Then we make sure he doesn't. Sam looked at her. How? I don't know yet. But I didn't come 2,000 miles to give up now. Clara squeezed his hand. We'll find a way, Sam. Together. Tommy stepped forward from the doorway where he'd been listening. I'll help too. Whatever you need. I ain't scared of Walters. Sam stared at the boy, then at Clara. Something in his expression shifted. The despair didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Something that looked almost like hope. Together, he repeated. Together. Outside, the Colorado wind carried the first hints of autumn. But inside the small ranch house, 3 broken people had found something worth fighting for, and none of them intended to let it go without a fight. 3 days passed with no word from Walters. The silence felt worse than any threat. Clara threw herself into work, rising before dawn and falling into bed exhausted each night. She reorganized the ledgers, made lists of debts and assets, and calculated exactly how much they needed to survive the winter. The numbers weren't good, but they weren't hopeless either. Sam rode the property lines, checking fences and counting cattle. He came home each evening with reports 2 calves born healthy, a section of fence that needed mending, a spring that might dry up if the rains didn't come. They talked over dinner planning and strategizing. Tommy listened quietly, absorbing everything. The bank loan comes due in 6 weeks, Clara said one evening. If we can sell 20 head of cattle at market price, we can pay it off and still have enough to get through winter. Market's in September. That's cutting it close. It's all we've got. Sam pushed his plate away. What if Walters makes his move before then, tells the whole town about my father? Then we face it, together. Easy for you to say. It ain't your family's shame. Clara set down her fork. Sam, I watched my husband waste away for 6 months before he died. I held his hand while he begged me to make the pain stop. And after he was gone, his family told everyone I'd neglected him, let him suffer because I wanted his money. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. There wasn't any money, just debt and grief and a whole city full of people who believed I was a monster. So yes, I understand shame. I understand having your name dragged through mud you don't deserve. Sam stared at her. I didn't know. You didn't ask, and I didn't tell because it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what we do now, today, tomorrow. Tommy looked between them, his young face uncertain. So, what do we do? We keep working. Clara stood and began clearing plates. We make this ranch so strong that nothing Walters says or does can tear it down. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, we fight. The next morning a rider came. Clara was in the garden when she heard hoofbeats. She straightened, wiping dirt from her hands, and watched a young man approach on a tired horse. Ma'am? He tipped his hat. I'm looking for Sam Hollister. He's in the barn. Who's asking? Name's Jacob Miller. I've got a message from Jebediah Walters. Clara's stomach tightened. I'll get him. She found Sam repairing tack, Tommy beside him, learning to stitch leather. Sam, messenger from Walters. Sam's face went hard. He set down his work and walked out to meet the rider, Clara close behind. Speak your piece, Sam said. Jacob Miller shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. Mr. Walters wants a meeting. Tomorrow noon at his ranch. He says you'll want to hear what he has to offer. I've heard his offers. The answer's still no. He said you'd say that. Miller pulled an envelope from his saddlebag. He also said to give you this. Sam took the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, faded and worn. Two men in Union uniforms, one clearly their father. The other was a man Clara didn't recognize. Sam's face went white. "What is it?" Clara asked. "My father. And the man who helped him desert." Sam's voice was barely audible. "He's threatening to name names, destroy two families instead of one." Miller looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Walters says if you don't come tomorrow, this photograph goes to the newspaper in Denver. Says the whole territory will know by week's end. Get off my land." "Sir, I'm just the messenger." "I said, get off my land." Miller wheeled his horse and rode away fast. Sam stood frozen, staring at the photograph. Clara gently took it from his hands. "Who's the other man?" "Henry Sullivan. He was my father's best friend. They enlisted together, fought side by side." Sam's voice cracked. "Henry came home a hero, got a medal. His son runs the bank in town now." "The bank that holds your loan." Sam nodded. "If Walters exposes this, it won't just ruin me. It'll destroy the Sullivan family too. Their whole reputation built on a lie." Clara's mind raced. "Does Marcus Sullivan know about his father?" "I don't know. Daniel never said." "We need to talk to him before Walters does." "Are you crazy? If I walk into that bank and tell Marcus his father was a deserter, he'll call the law on me." "Maybe. Or maybe he already knows. Maybe he's been waiting for someone to figure it out." Sam stared at her. "That's a hell of a gamble." "Do we have a choice?" They rode into town that afternoon. Clara insisted on coming despite Sam's protests, and Tommy stayed behind to watch the ranch. The bank was quiet. Marcus Sullivan sat behind a mahogany desk, a neat man in his 40s, with graying temples and spectacles perched on his nose. He looked up as they entered. "Sam Hollister, what brings you to my office?" Sam stood rigid, hat in hands. "We need to talk Marcus, privately." Sullivan studied him for a moment, then nodded to his clerk. "Take an early lunch, Robert." When the door closed, Sullivan leaned back in his chair. "This is about Walters, isn't it?" Sam's jaw dropped. "You know, I know Jeb Walters has been circling your ranch like a vulture for years. I know he had something on Daniel that kept him paying money he couldn't afford." Sullivan removed his spectacles and polished them slowly. "What I don't know is what he has on you." Clara stepped forward. "He has proof that Sam's father deserted at Gettysburg, and that your father helped him." The words landed like stones in still water. Sullivan's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Sam pulled out the photograph. "Look at this. Tell me that's not your father standing next to mine in a picture that shouldn't exist." Sullivan took the photograph with trembling hands. He stared at it for a long moment, his jaw working. "Where did you get this?" "Walters. He's had it for years. Been bleeding us dry to keep it quiet." Sullivan looked up. "And you came here to warn me instead of letting him expose us all and saving yourself?" "There's no saving myself, Marcus. Walters will destroy me either way. But you don't deserve to go down for your father's choices. Neither of us do." The banker was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My father told me before he died. Made me swear never to tell anyone. Said the shame would follow our family forever if people knew. So, you've been carrying this too?" "For 15 years. Sullivan set down the photograph. "How much does Walters want?" "He doesn't want money. He wants my land. The water rights." Sullivan nodded slowly. "Of course. He's been trying to monopolize the water supply for years. If he controls Miller's Creek, he controls the whole valley." Clara leaned forward. "Is there any way to stop him?" Sullivan studied her. "You're the mail-order bride everyone's talking about." "I'm the woman trying to save this ranch." You've got spine, I'll give you that. Sullivan drummed his fingers on the desk. Walters is powerful, but he's not untouchable. He's made enemies over the years, people who'd love to see him fall. What are you suggesting? Sam asked. I'm suggesting that Walters has secrets too. Everybody does. The trick is finding them before he destroys us all. Clara's mind was racing. What kind of secrets? 3 years ago, a rancher named Tom Brennan sold his land to Walters. Everyone said he got a fair price and moved back east. But I handled his accounts. He had money more than enough to live comfortably here. Why would a man like that just disappear? What are you saying? I'm saying Tom Brennan was healthy and happy one day, and gone without a word the next. His wife came to me 6 months later trying to find him. She never did. Sam's face hardened. You think Walters did something to him? I think if we dig deep enough, we might find out Jeb Walters isn't just a bully. He might be something much worse. They left the bank with more questions than answers. But for the first time, Clara felt something besides fear. She felt possibility. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. Clara heard him pacing in the main room and finally got up to join him. You should rest, she said. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Can't. He stood by the window. Keep thinking about what Marcus said, about Tom Brennan. You knew him. A little. Good man, quiet, loved his wife, worked his land, not the type to just vanish. Clara moved to stand beside him. What are you going to do? I'm going to that meeting tomorrow. Hear what Walters has to say. Sam, I'm not going to give him what he wants, but I need to look him in the eye, see if Marcus is right about him. Clara touched his arm. I'm coming with you. No. Yes. Her voice was firm. You don't face this alone. Sam turned to look at her. In the dim light, his face was all shadows and hard lines, but his eyes were soft. Why do you care so much about this ranch about me? You could have walked away a dozen times. I could ask you the same thing. Why did you let me stay? Why did you take in Tommy? That's different. Is it? Clara held his gaze. We're both running from something, Sam. Loss, grief, shame. But maybe we're also running toward something. Maybe we're building something worth saving. Sam reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, almost tentative. Clara, you don't have to say anything. I just need you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, I'm with you. All the way. Sam's hand lingered on her cheek. For a moment, Clara thought he might kiss her. But instead, he stepped back, his jaw tight. Get some sleep. We leave at first light. Clara watched him go to his room, the door closing softly behind him. Her cheek still burned where he'd touched her. Tomorrow, everything would change. She could feel it in her bones. The road to Walter's ranch was long and dusty. Clara sat beside Sam in the wagon, neither of them speaking much. Tommy had wanted to come, but Sam had forbidden it. If things go bad, someone needs to know where we are, he'd said. You stay here, keep your eyes open. If we're not back by sundown, ride to town and find Maggie O'Brien. The Silver Creek Ranch was everything the Hollister spread wasn't. Grand buildings, dozens of hands moving through the property, cattle stretching to the horizon. Wealth on display like a taunt. Walters met them on the porch, a glass of whiskey in his hand, despite the early hour. Sam, right on time. His gaze slid to Clara. And you brought your little bride. How touching. Say your piece, Walters. Always so impatient. Walters gestured to chairs on the porch. Please sit. Make yourselves comfortable. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Walters sipped his whiskey. I assume you've shown that photograph to Marcus Sullivan by now. Tried to warn him. Sam's face didn't change. What makes you think that? Because it's what I'd do. Build alliances, circle the wagons. Walters smiled. Problem is, Sam, I've got wagons too. Bigger ones. More of them. What do you want? Same thing I've always wanted. That land. Those water rights. Walters leaned forward. Sign it over and this all goes away. I'll burn those documents, destroy the photographs. You walk away clean. And if I don't, then by this time next week, every newspaper in Colorado will know what your father did. Marcus Sullivan's career will be destroyed. And you'll be so buried in shame you won't be able to show your face anywhere west of the Mississippi. Clara spoke for the first time. You'd destroy innocent people just to get what you want. Walter's eyes narrowed. There are no innocent people, Mrs. Bennett. Only those who haven't been caught yet. Like Tom Brennan. The name landed like a slap. Walter's smile flickered just for a moment. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. I think you know exactly what happened to him. Walters rose slowly. The pleasant mask was gone now, replaced by something cold and dangerous. Be very careful, Mrs. Bennett. You're a stranger here. Nobody. If something happened to you out in that wilderness, who would even notice? Sam stepped forward, putting himself between Walters and Clara. You threaten her again, and I'll make sure you never threaten anyone else. Big words from a small man. Walters didn't flinch. You've got until the end of the week. Sign the papers, or I burn everything down. They left without another word. The ride home was silent. Clara could feel Sam shaking with rage beside her, his hands white-knuckled on the reins. They were halfway home when they saw the smoke. Sam! Clara grabbed his arm. Look! Black smoke rose from the direction of the ranch. Sam whipped the horses into a gallop, the wagon bouncing dangerously over the rough road. Clara held on, her heart pounding. Please, she prayed. Please let Tommy be safe. The barn was burning. Tommy stood in the yard, beating at flames with a blanket, coughing in the thick smoke. Sam leaped from the wagon before it stopped moving and ran to him. What happened? Men came. Tommy's face was streaked with soot and tears. 3 of them. Said this was a warning. Clara looked at this barn, at the flames, consuming wood and hay, and months of hard work. The horses were out, thank God, but everything else was gone. Sam grabbed Tommy's shoulders. Are you hurt? No, sir. I got the animals out, but I couldn't stop them. I tried. You did good, Tommy. You did exactly right. Clara filled buckets from the well, but it was hopeless. The barn was beyond saving. All they could do was watch it burn. Sam stood with his arms around Tommy, his face lit by flames. This is my fault, he said. I pushed back, and now, this is Walter's fault. Clara's voice was fierce. And he's going to pay for it. How he owns half the law in this county. He's got more money and more men than we could ever match. He's also got enemies. Marcus said so. People who want to see him fall. Sam shook his head. It's over, Clara. We can't fight this. Clara grabbed his arm and turned him to face her. The fire reflected in his eyes, making them look like they were burning too. Listen to me, Sam Hollister. I didn't cross 2,000 miles to watch you give up. I didn't bury my old life and build a new one just to let some snake in a fancy suit take it away. We are going to fight, and we are going to win, because we have something Jeb Walters will never understand. What's that? Clara looked at Sam, then at Tommy, then at the burning barn that had been their livelihood. Each other. And that's worth more than all his money and power combined. Sam stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. The defeat that had been settling over him like ash lifted, replaced by something harder, fiercer. All right? He straightened his shoulders. We fight. Clara took his hand in one of hers, and Tommy's in the other. We fight together. The barn burned through the night. By morning, only ashes remained. But as Clara watched the sun rise over the mountains, she felt something unexpected. Hope. Walters thought he had broken them. Instead, he had forged them into something stronger. And that was going to be his biggest mistake. Word traveled fast in Copper Creek. By noon the next day, Maggie O'Brien's wagon rolled up to the ranch loaded with supplies and followed by 3 others. Clara stood on the porch, stunned as people she barely knew climbed down and began unloading lumber tools, food blankets. "What is this?" Maggie marched up to her, hands on her hips. "This is what neighbors do, honey. When one of us falls, the rest pick them up." "But we can't pay. Nobody's asking for payment." Maggie pressed a basket of bread into Clara's hands. "Now get out of the way and let us work." Sam emerged from behind the burned barn, his face smeared with ash. He stopped short at the sight of the wagons, the people, the organized chaos unfolding in his yard. "What the hell?" Marcus Sullivan approached, rolling up his sleeves. "Heard about your trouble, Sam. Figured you could use some help." "You're a banker. What do you know about building barns?" "Not a damn thing, but I can hold a hammer and follow instructions." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "We're in this together now, remember?" By evening, the skeleton of a new barn stood where the old one had been. Not finished, not even close, but real. Solid. A promise of what could be built with enough hands and enough heart. Clara served coffee to the workers, her throat tight with emotion she couldn't name. These people owed her nothing. Most of them had been gossiping about her just weeks ago. Now they were rebuilding her life board by board. "You look overwhelmed." Clara turned to find Maggie beside her. "I don't understand why they're helping." "Because Jeb Walters burned your barn." Maggie's voice was hard. "Everyone knows it, even if nobody can prove it. And folks are tired of being scared of that man. They're risking his anger by being here." "Maybe. But there's more of us than there are of him. It's time people remembered that." Sam found Clara later after the last wagon had rolled away and Tommy had fallen asleep in the hay pile that served as his temporary bed. "I don't know how to thank them," he said. "You don't have to. That's not why they came." Sam shook his head slowly. "I've lived here my whole life. Always kept to myself, minded my own business. Never asked anybody for anything." "Maybe that's the problem." "What do you mean?" Clara turned to face him. "You've been so busy protecting yourself, you never let anyone in. Never let them see you needed help." "I didn't want to be a burden." "Being part of a community isn't a burden, Sam. It's a gift. You give when you can. You receive when you need. That's how it works." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to do that." "Neither did I. Not until I came here." Clara reached for his hand. "We can learn together." Sam's fingers closed around hers. Strong, warm, certain. "Clara, I need to tell you something." "What?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Shook his head. "Not tonight. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we fight." Clara wanted to push, wanted to know what he was holding back. But she saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight he was carrying, and she let it go. "Tomorrow, then." She went inside, and Sam stayed on the porch, watching the stars wheel overhead. Whatever he needed to say, it would have to wait. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Clara was kneading bread when the knock came. She wiped her hands and opened the door to find a woman standing on the porch. Thin, worn, with haunted eyes that looked like they hadn't known peace in years. "Mrs. Bennett." "Yes. Who are you?" "My name is Sarah Brennan. I think we need to talk." Clara's heart stopped. "Brennan, as in Tom Brennan?" "He was my husband." Sarah's voice cracked. "I heard you've been asking questions about him, about what really happened." Clara pulled the woman inside and sat her down at the table. Sam came in from the yard, took one look at Sarah's face, and understood immediately. "Mrs. Brennan, I knew your husband." "Everyone did. Everyone loved Tom." Sarah twisted her hands in her lap. "That's why I couldn't understand. Why he would just leave. Why he would abandon me without a word." "You don't think he left willingly," Clara said. "Tom would never have left me. Never. We were married 15 years. He told me every day that I was his whole world." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. And then one morning he was gone. His horse, his saddle, everything. Walters said he'd signed over the land and headed east. But I never got a letter. Not one word in 3 years. Sam leaned forward. What did the sheriff say? Sheriff works for Walters. Everyone knows that. He told me Tom had debts I didn't know about, that he'd probably run off to escape them. But it wasn't true. I kept our books. I knew every penny. Clara exchanged a look with Sam. Mrs. Brennan, do you have any proof? Anything that shows what really happened? Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a worn envelope. I found this last month, hidden in Tom's things, a place I'd missed before. It's a letter he wrote but never sent. She handed it to Clara. The handwriting was cramped, hurried, as if written in fear. Read it aloud, Sam said. Clara unfolded the paper. Sarah, if you find this, something has gone wrong. Walters came to me again today demanding I sell. When I refused, he said things that made my blood run cold. He knows things about men in this valley, secrets that could destroy families. He's been collecting them for years, using them to take what he wants. I don't know what he has on me, but I fear he'll find something. If I disappear, don't believe what they tell you. Look for the truth, and never ever trust Jebediah Walters. The letter ended there. No signature. Just 3 words scrawled at the bottom, I love you. Sarah wiped her eyes. I came here because I heard you were fighting him. I thought maybe together we could find out what really happened to my Tom. Sam stood abruptly. Where was your ranch, Mrs. Brennan? North end of the valley. Walters has it now. Uses it for grazing. And your husband's body was never found. Sarah flinched at the word. No, nothing. Then we need to find it. Clara grabbed his arm. Sam, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Walters didn't just run Tom Brennan off his land. I'm thinking he did something much worse. Sam's jaw was set hard. And I'm thinking if we can prove it, Jeb Walters won't be threatening anyone ever again. They made a plan. Sam would ride out to the old Brennan property after dark, look for anything that might have been missed. Clara would stay with Sarah, keep her safe, and continue digging through Daniel's records for any other evidence of Walter's crimes. I'm coming with you, Tommy said when he heard the plan. Absolutely not. You need someone to watch your back, and I know how to be quiet. The boy's right, Sarah said unexpectedly. Walters has eyes everywhere. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. Sam looked at Tommy, really looked at him. The boy had grown in the weeks since they'd taken him in. He was stronger, more confident, no longer the starving orphan they'd found bleeding in an alley. You do exactly what I say. No arguments, no heroics. Yes, sir. And if things go bad, you run. You hear me? You run and you don't look back. Tommy nodded, his young face solemn. I hear you. They left after sundown. Clara watched them go, her heart tight with fear. She wanted to call Sam back, wanted to beg him not to risk himself for a man who was probably already dead. But she understood why he had to try. Some things were more important than safety. Sarah sat by the fire, clutching her husband's letter like a talisman. Do you think they'll find anything? I don't know, but if there's something to find, Sam will find it. You love him. The words caught Clara off guard. We have an arrangement. A business arrangement. Honey, I've been married 15 years. I know what love looks like. And that man looks at you like you hung the moon. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. It's complicated. Love always is. Sarah managed a small smile. Don't waste time being scared, Clara. Life's too short, and it can be taken away in an instant. If you love him, tell him. Clara stared at the fire, Sarah's words echoing in her mind. She thought about Sam's hand on her cheek, the way his voice softened when he said her name, the promise in his eyes that he never quite spoke aloud. She thought about what it would mean to love again, to risk her heart again. It terrified her. It also felt inevitable. Hours passed. Clara couldn't sleep, couldn't sit still. She paced the cabin, checked the windows, listened for hoofbeats that didn't come. Sarah finally dozed in the chair by the fire. Clara covered her with a blanket and stepped onto the porch, the night air cool against her skin. "Come back," she whispered into the darkness. "Please come back." They returned just before dawn. Clara heard the horses and ran out to meet them, her heart pounding. Sam dismounted slowly, his face pale. "What happened? Did you find something?" Sam reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a bundle wrapped in cloth. He handed it to Clara without a word. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a pocket watch, tarnished and dirty, engraved with initials T.B. "Tom's watch," Clara breathed. "Where was it?" "Buried, near the old well on the back 40. Sam's voice was flat. "There's more, a lot more." Tommy stumbled forward, his face green. "I never seen anything like that. The ground it was there were bones." Sam put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Go inside. Get some water. You did good tonight." Tommy nodded shakily and went in. Sarah met him at the door, her face questioning. When she saw the watch in Clara's hands, she let out a sound that wasn't quite human. "Tom. Oh God, Tom." Sam caught her as her knees buckled. He guided her to a chair, his movements gentle despite the hardness in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Brennan. I'm so sorry." How did he shot?" "We found the bullet still in the ground." Sam's jaw tightened. "Walters murdered your husband, Sarah, and we can prove it." Clara's mind was racing. "This changes everything. If we take this to the authorities, the sheriff is Walter's man. We already know that. Then we go over his head. The territorial marshal in Denver, the newspapers, anyone who'll listen." Sam shook his head slowly. "It's still our word against his. We need more than a watch and some bones. What about the other families, the ones he's been blackmailing? If they all came forward?" "They're scared, Clara. You've seen how scared. They won't risk everything on a gamble." Clara grabbed his hands. "Then we make sure it's not a gamble. We gather every piece of evidence, every document, every witness. We build a case so solid not even Walters can tear it down. That'll take time we don't have. Then we buy ourselves time." Clara's eyes were fierce. "We play his game, make him think he's winning, and when he drops his guard we strike." Sam stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "All right. Tell me what you need." "Why?" They worked through the day and into the night. Clara sorted through every document Daniel had left behind, looking for patterns, connections, anything that linked Walters to his crimes. Sarah contributed what she knew about other ranchers who'd sold out under pressure. Marcus Sullivan sent word that he'd found discrepancies in land deals going back a decade. Piece by piece, a picture emerged. Walters hadn't just been buying land. He'd been stealing it, using blackmail, intimidation, and apparently murder to build an empire on other people's suffering. "It's not enough," Sam said, staring at the pile of papers on the table. "We need someone inside, someone who knows his secrets. His men are loyal. They won't talk." "Not all of them." Tommy spoke up from the corner where he'd been listening. "I know someone. Jacob Miller, the one who brought you that message. He's not like the others. He's scared." "How do you know?" "Saw his face when he was here. He didn't want to be delivering threats. He looked sick about it." Sam considered this. "You think he'd turn on Walters?" "I think if someone offered him a way out, he'd take it." Clara looked at Tommy with new respect. "That's good thinking." "I notice things. Helps when you're living on the streets." Sam stood and grabbed his hat. "I'll find Miller. See what he's willing to share." "Be careful," Clara said. "If Walters finds out, he won't." Sam paused at the door, turning back to look at her. "Clara, when this is over, we need to talk." "About what?" "About us. About what happens next." Clara's heart stuttered. "Sam?" But he was already gone, the door closing behind him. Sarah watched Clara with knowing eyes. "Told you, That man loves you. He hasn't said it. Some men don't know how. Doesn't mean they don't feel it. Clara touched the place on her cheek where Sam's hand had rested. I'm scared. Of what? Of wanting something this much. Every time I've wanted something, I've lost it. Sarah reached out and took her hand. You can't live your life afraid of losing honey. If you do, you've already lost everything. The words settled into Clara's chest like seeds taking root. She thought about William, about the years they'd had together before illness took him. She wouldn't trade those years for anything, even knowing how they ended. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe love was worth the risk of loss. Maybe Sam was worth it. Sam returned at dusk, not alone. Jacob Miller rode beside him, looking over his shoulder every few seconds like he expected Walters himself to appear and strike him down. He'll talk, Sam said as they dismounted. But he wants something in return. What? Safe passage out of the territory. A new start somewhere. Walters can't reach him. Clara nodded. Done. What does he know? They gathered in the cabin, Miller sitting stiffly at the table, refusing coffee, refusing food. His hands trembled as he spoke. I've been working for Walters 3 years now. Thought it was a good job, steady pay. Didn't know what I was getting into until it was too late. What did you see? Clara asked. Everything. The threats, the payments, the deals made in back rooms. Miller swallowed hard. I saw him kill Tom Brennan. Shot him in the back when he tried to ride away. Made us bury the body and swear we'd never speak of it. Sarah let out a sob. Clara put her arm around the widow's shoulders. There's more, Miller continued. Brennan wasn't the first. There was a prospector 2 years before that name of Harding. Found gold on his claim and wouldn't sell. Walters had him killed and made it look like an accident. Cave in. Same way your brother died, Sam. The cabin went silent. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. Daniel's death wasn't an accident. I don't know for sure, but Walters bragged about it after. Said he'd solved 2 problems at once. Got the land and got rid of the man who'd been standing in his way. Sam hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. His face was carved from stone, his eyes empty. Sam. Clara reached for him. Sam, are you? He killed my brother. The words came out flat. Dead. Walters murdered Daniel and made it look like an accident. Sam, please. I shook that man's hand at my brother's funeral. He offered his condolences, looked me in the eye and lied. Sam's voice cracked. And I believed him. Clara grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. This is not your fault. You couldn't have known. I should have known. I should have seen. How? How could you have seen what he hid from everyone? Clara's eyes blazed. Sam, listen to me. We're going to make him pay. For Daniel, for Tom, for everyone he's ever hurt. But I need you with me. I can't do this alone. Something broke in Sam's expression. The stone crumbled, and beneath it was raw, bleeding grief. He pulled Clara against him, burying his face in her hair, his shoulders shaking with sobs he'd held back for too long. Clara held him, her own tears falling silently. Around them, the others looked away, giving them this moment of private sorrow in the midst of everything. When Sam finally pulled back, his face was wet, but his eyes were clear. What do we do next? Clara smiled through her tears. We burn Jebediah Walters to the ground. They worked through the night, Miller providing details while Clara wrote everything down. By morning, they had a document that told the whole story. The murders, the blackmail, the stolen land. Everything Walters had built exposed for the house of cards it was. We need to get this to Denver, Clara said. The territorial marshal, the newspapers, everyone. Walters has men watching the roads. We'll never make it. Then we don't take the roads. Clara turned to Tommy. You know this land better than anyone. Is there another way? Tommy thought for a moment. There's an old mining trail through the mountains. Comes out north of Denver. It's rough, but it's hidden. Can you guide us? Yes, ma'am, I can. Sam stood. We leave today. The longer we wait, the more chance Walters finds out what we're planning. I'll stay here, Sarah said. Keep up appearances. Make it look like nothing's changed. That's dangerous, Clara protested. So is everything else we're doing. Sarah's smile was sad, but determined. Let me do this. For Tom. Clara hugged her tight. Be careful. You too. They gathered supplies quickly. Clara changed into the sturdiest clothes she had, tucked her nursing kit into her saddlebag, and tried not to think about everything that could go wrong. Sam appeared beside her, his own bags packed. Ready? No, but that's never stopped me before. He almost smiled. Clara, about what I said before. About needing to talk. Tell me when this is over. What if we don't make it? Clara took his hand. Then tell me now. Sam looked at her for a long moment. The morning sun caught his face, softening the hard lines, illuminating the gray in his eyes, until they looked almost silver. I love you, he said simply. I've loved you since you stood in that graveyard and refused to give up. I've loved you every day since, even when I was too scared to admit it. Clara felt her heart crack open. Sam, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens next, I needed you to know. Clara rose on her toes and kissed him. It was gentle at first, then fierce, a promise and a claim and a declaration all at once. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I love you too, she said. I love you, and I'm terrified, and I don't care. Whatever happens, we face it together. Sam rested his forehead against hers. Together. Tommy appeared at the door leading 3 horses. We should go. Sun's getting high. They mounted up and rode out, leaving the ranch behind. Ahead of them lay the mountains, the mining trail, and the fight of their lives. Behind them, Sarah Brennan watched from the porch until they disappeared from sight. And in the distance, unseen, a rider watched them go and turned his horse toward the Silver Creek Ranch, riding fast to deliver the news. The mining trail was rougher than Tommy had warned. Narrow, treacherous, winding through passes that made Clara's horse stumble more than once. But they pushed on. By nightfall, they'd covered 20 miles. Sam called a halt near a creek where the horses could drink and rest. We'll move again before dawn, he said, helping Clara dismount. Should reach Denver by tomorrow afternoon if we keep this pace. Will we make it in time? We have to. Tommy tended the horses while Clara unpacked dried meat and hardtack. They ate in silence, too tired and too tense for conversation. Clara noticed Sam checking his rifle for the 3rd time. You think they're following us? I know they are. Sam didn't look up. Saw dust on the horizon an hour ago. 3, maybe 4 riders. Clara's stomach dropped. Why didn't you say something? Didn't want to scare Tommy. Besides, nothing we can do except keep moving. Sam, if they catch us, they won't. He finally met her eyes. I won't let them. They slept in shifts, 2 hours each, with Sam insisting on taking the longest watch. Clara lay on the hard ground, her body exhausted, but her mind racing. Everything depended on reaching Denver, on getting the documents to the right people, on making someone believe them. What if they failed? What if Walters was too powerful, too connected? What if all their evidence meant nothing against his money and influence? Clara squeezed her eyes shut and forced the doubts away. She couldn't afford them. Not now. Sam woke her before dawn, his hand gentle on her shoulder. Time to go. They rode hard as the sun rose, pushing the horses faster than was safe on such rough terrain. Tommy led the way, his young eyes sharp for hazards, his knowledge of the land their only advantage. By mid-morning, the trail widened. Clara felt a spark of hope. They were getting close. Then Tommy pulled up short. Riders ahead. Sam drew his rifle. How many be? 2, blocking the trail. Clara's heart pounded. Can we go around? Not here. cliffs on both sides. Sam dismounted and handed his reins to Clara. Stay here, both of you. Sam, no. I said stay here. He moved forward on foot rifle ready until he was close enough to see the men's faces. Then he stopped dead. Well, well. Jebediah Walters' voice echoed off the canyon walls. Thought you could sneak past me, did you? Clara watched Sam's shoulders tense. She wanted to go to him to stand beside him, but she knew he needed her to stay back. To protect Tommy. To protect the documents that could destroy Walters. Let us pass, Jeb. Can't do that, Sam. You've got something that belongs to me. It doesn't belong to you. It never did. You stole it. You killed for it. Walters laughed. Killed. That's a strong accusation. I've got witnesses, evidence. Enough to see you hanged. Do you? Walter's voice turned cold. Because from where I'm standing, all I see is a desperate man with a mail-order bride and a street rat trying to play at being heroes. Clara's hand moved to the saddlebag where the documents were hidden. If Walters took them, it was over. Everything they'd fought for, everyone they'd lost, it would all be for nothing. She made a decision. Tommy, she whispered, take the horses. Get to Denver. What? You know the way. You can make it. Tell the marshal everything. Give him these documents. But ma'am. Go. Now. Don't look back. Tommy's face crumpled, but he nodded. Clara slipped him the saddlebag and watched him wheel his horse toward a narrow gap between the rocks, a path too small for grown men to follow quickly. Hey! One of Walter's men shouted. The boy's running! Clara spurred her horse forward, placing herself between the men and Tommy's escape route. Go, Tommy, ride! A shot rang out. Clara felt something hot tear across her arm. She gasped but didn't fall. Clara! Sam's voice was raw with terror. I'm fine, stop him! Sam moved like a man possessed, tackling Walters before he could fire again. They went down hard, struggling for the rifle between them. The other rider came at Clara. She yanked her horse sideways, barely avoiding his grab. Her injured arm screamed, but she couldn't stop. Couldn't let them catch Tommy. Another shot. The rider jerked and fell from his saddle. Clara spun to see Sam standing over Walters, the rifle in his hands, smoke still curling from the barrel. Walters lay on the ground, clutching his leg, where the bullet had found him. It's over, Jeb. Nothing's over. Walters spat blood. I own this territory. I own the sheriff, the judges, half the lawmakers in Denver. You think a few papers will change that? Maybe not, but we're going to find out. Clara dismounted, gripping her arm where blood soaked her sleeve. Sam, we need to move. There might be more coming. There's always more. Walters laughed, a horrible wet sound. Kill me now if you want. My men will hunt you down. Everything I built, someone else will take over. You can't destroy what I've created. Sam raised the rifle, his finger on the trigger. Clara saw something dark and terrible in his eyes. Sam, don't. He killed Daniel. He killed Tom Brennan. God knows how many others. I know, but this isn't the way. Clara moved to his side, placed her hand over his on the rifle. If you kill him like this, you're just another killer. And he wins. He deserves to die. Maybe, but you deserve to live. We deserve to live. Don't give that up for him. Sam's hands trembled. His jaw worked. For a long, terrible moment, Clara thought he would pull the trigger anyway. Then slowly, he lowered the rifle. Tie him up. We're taking him to Denver. They bound Walter's hands and loaded him onto his own horse. The other rider was dead beyond help. Clara wrapped her arm with strips torn from her petticoat and tried not to think about how much blood she was losing. They rode. Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination. Clara clung to her saddle, her vision swimming, her arm throbbing with every heartbeat. Stay with me, Sam kept saying. Stay with me, Clara. We're almost there. She wanted to tell him she was fine, wanted to reassure him, But the words wouldn't come. The world tilted sideways, and then there was only darkness. Clara woke to the smell of carbolic acid and clean linen. Her arm was bandaged, her body tucked into a soft bed, her mind fuzzy with what she recognized as laudanum. "Sam, I'm here." His face appeared above her, drawn and exhausted but whole. Alive. "We made it, Clara. We're in Denver." "Tommy?" "He's fine. Got here hours before we did. Went straight to the marshal's office just like you told him." Clara tried to sit up, but Sam gently pushed her back down. "Easy. You lost a lot of blood. Doc says you need rest." "Walters. In jail. Marshall took one look at those documents and arrested him on the spot. They're going through his records now, finding more evidence every hour. It's over, Clara. He's done." Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. Relief and exhaustion, and something else she couldn't name. "Daniel," she whispered. "We got justice for Daniel. We got justice for all of them." Sam took her hand, pressed it to his lips. "Because of you. Because you wouldn't give up. We did it together. We did." Sam smiled, really smiled for the first time since she'd known him. "And we're going to keep doing things together, if you'll have me." Clara reached up and touched his face. "I already said yes, Sam Hollister. I'm not going anywhere." He leaned down and kissed her, gentle and careful and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Clara laughed softly. "We should probably wait until I'm not drugged to make any major decisions." "Probably, but I'm not changing my mind. Neither am I." The trial lasted 2 weeks. Clara testified from a wheelchair at first, then on her own feet as she grew stronger. Sam testified. Tommy testified. Jacob Miller testified. Sarah Brennan testified. And one by one, other victims came forward. Ranchers who'd been threatened. Businessmen who'd been blackmailed. Families who'd lost everything to Walter's greed. The courtroom was packed every day. Newspapers from Denver to New York carried the story. The corrupt sheriff was arrested. 2 territorial judges were removed from the bench. A dozen of Walter's men turned on him to save themselves. When the verdict came guilty on all counts, including 2 charges of murder, the crowd outside the courthouse cheered so loudly Clara felt the ground shake. Jebediah Walters was sentenced to hang. Clara watched them lead him away in chains, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. The empire he'd built through fear and violence had crumbled in days. The people he'd terrorized had found their courage. Sam stood beside her, Tommy on his other side. Sarah Brennan wiped tears from her eyes nearby. "It's really over," Clara said. "It's really over." Sam pulled her close. "Let's go home." They returned to Copper Creek as heroes. Maggie O'Brien organized a celebration that half the territory attended. Marcus Sullivan personally tore up the outstanding loan on the Hollister Ranch. The barn was finished in a day, with every able-bodied person in town pitching in. But the best moment came quietly weeks later, when the crowds had gone and life had returned to normal. Clara stood on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and rose. Her arm had healed clean, with only a thin scar to show for her trouble. Sam came up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing." Clara leaned back against him. "I was thinking about the day I arrived in Copper Creek. I came to marry a stranger and found his grave instead. I had nothing, no one, no idea what I was going to do. And now I have a home, a family, a future." She turned in his arms to face him. "I have you." Sam brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Marry me, Clara. Properly, I mean. In the church with the whole town watching. Let me give you my name." "I thought you'd never ask." "Is that a yes?" "That's absolutely a yes." They were married on a Sunday in October, when the aspens had turned gold, and the air was crisp with the first hints of winter. The little church was packed with people who had once gossiped about Clara, and now called her friend. Maggie O'Brien cried through the entire ceremony. Tommy served as ring-bearer, standing proud and tall in a new suit Clara had sewn for him. Marcus Sullivan gave a toast at the reception that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. And when Sam kissed his bride, the cheering could be heard a mile away. That night, alone in the cabin that had become their home, Sam held Clara close. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. "After everything that happened, after all the years of running and hiding and pretending I didn't need anyone, I never thought I deserved to be happy." "Neither did I." Clara traced the lines of his face with her fingertips. "But we found each other anyway. Daniel brought you here, in a way. Maybe. Or maybe it was fate. Maybe some things are just meant to be." "Do you believe that?" Clara thought about it. About the telegram that had arrived 3 days after Daniel's death. About the stagecoach ride across the country. About all the moments when she could have turned back and didn't. "I believe that we make our own fate. That we choose who we love and how we love them. That nothing worth having comes easy, and the things that hurt the most teach us the most." Sam kissed her forehead. "I love you, Clara Hollister." "I love you too, Sam Hollister. Forever. Forever." Spring came early that year. Clara watched it unfold from the porch of the ranch house, the new ranch house twice the size of the old one, with a nursery built off the main bedroom. Her hand rested on her swelling belly as Sam worked in the yard below Tommy, helping him with the new fence line. The boy had grown 6 inches since they'd taken him in, filled out with good food and hard work. He was their son now, officially adopted, his name legally changed to Thomas Hollister. "Ma!" Tommy shouted up at her. "Sam says dinner's almost ready." Clara smiled. "I'll be right down." She took one more moment, just one, to look out at the land that was theirs. The land they'd fought for, bled for, nearly died for. It was worth it. Every struggle, every tear, every sleepless night. She went inside to find Sam at the stove, wearing the apron she'd sewn him as a joke, and which he now wore without irony. "I can finish that," she said. "Doctor says you're supposed to rest." "Doctor says I'm supposed to avoid heavy lifting. Stirring soup isn't heavy lifting." Sam turned and pulled her close, his hands gentle on her belly. "Our baby. I still can't believe it." "Believe it. In about 4 months you're going to have a lot less sleep and a lot more mess." "I can't wait." Clara laughed. "You say that now." They ate dinner together, the 3 of them, as they did every night. Tommy talked about the horses he was training. Sam described his plans for expanding the herd. Clara shared a letter she'd received from Sarah Brennan, who had remarried and moved to California. This was her life now. This family, this home, this love that had grown from grief and desperation into something unshakable. After Tommy went to bed, Sam and Clara sat by the fire, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. "Happy?" he asked. "So happy it scares me." "Don't be scared. I'm not going anywhere." "I know." Clara closed her eyes. "I finally know." The fire crackled. The wind whispered against the windows. And in the small cabin on the Colorado frontier, 2 people who had found each other against all odds held on tight and refused to let go. Clara Bennett had come west to marry a stranger. She had found his grave instead. But in that loss, she had discovered something greater. A love that was built not on promises written in letters, but on shared struggle and mutual respect. A family forged not by blood, but by choice. A home created not by luck, but by courage. She had crossed 2,000 miles to find her future, and it had been worth every step.